Over the summer of 2014, our crew traveled the country in search of the best fly fishing destinations for carp in the U.S. And our goal was simple, to find out if carp are worthy of the term game fish, or if they are in fact, as they've been labeled in North America, just a trash fish. Here's a few of our favorite destinations and a couple characters. You realize these guys are not fishing for carp, throw your neighbor a high five. You're right. This is the mako shark, one of the hottest fly targets swimming in the ocean.
I'm Conway Bowman. I'm a fly fisherman here in San Diego. I remember the first mako I caught on a fly. It came in about a 6-footer. It was circling the boat. I was kind of like, oh man, this is a big different ball. There's not one fish anywhere in the world that you can basically go out and have the fish charge the boat, throw a fly, and almost every time that fish is going to take that fly. And then you hook that fish, and that fish jumps 10, 20 feet.
We couldn't travel to Southern California and not jump a few makos, but this area is also home to some of the best dry fly fishing for carp in the States, and many in the shark fishing crowd also dig on carp.
I grew up fishing not only the saltwater, but also the local reservoirs. And carp fishery starts, for me, it was John Hendrickson here in San Diego. Pennsylvania native, moved out here, started working in a fly shop, but he discovered that we have a great carp fishery here.
Hi, my name's Captain John Hendrickson. Not only does carp fishing mean the holy grail of fish to me, you have a wonderful opportunity here to catch carp on dry flies year round.
You know, it always takes a guy like John Hendrickson to do something that's kind of weird and goofy, that people would perceive as weird and goofy, but then all of a sudden, when they start catching the fish, and they're like, hey, that's the coolest thing ever.
I feel really fortunate to have a place like this that's an hour away. Obviously, we live in Southern California. We're not privileged enough to have trout streams. We don't have running water. As a matter of fact, we have very limited water. It's quite obvious as to what's been going on in recent years. The cool part is you're gonna get shots, sometimes 100 shots a day. My favorite things about carp fishing is that it's still redneck, it's still inbred enough that you don't get guys that are just here in town on vacation and they say, let's go carp fishing. Guys who fish for carp are hardcore anglers. It's finally catching on in the States, and it's mainly because of the fly fishing industry.
I think that the future is bright for carp. And I think we're past all the, I don't want to fish those stinky fish. I think we're past that now. People are digging it.
My buddy Conway came to me and says, hey, what'd you think about doing a carp tournament?
He's probably pissed at me because, of course, I got so into it, I started promoting it.
And I said, forget that, this is my secret fishing spot. I don't want everybody to know about it, you know? And
he may be a little bit pissed.
Kind of the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know, that would be a hell of a lot of fun. Knowing most carp fishermen that I know, they're pretty much like me, redneck, inbred, like to hang out, drink a few beers, eat some greasy food. And so I says, you know, that sounds like a hell of a way to get to meet some people, get guys interested in it, maybe grow the sport a little bit, and hell, catch a few more fish and learn something, man. You know, I personally learn things from everybody I fish with.
One of the oldest carp tournaments in the country is held in the Mile High City. If you're shocked to learn that many Coloradans are carp crazy, don't be. Carp were introduced to Colorado before the famed brown trout. We caught up with this year's Carp Slam tournament winner, Frank Smethers, who's on the river with longtime fly fishing author Kirk Dieter.
It's looking pretty nymphy. Straight up indicator rig is probably going to be the best way to catch these carp. It's pretty tricky. It's actually become really great for my trout fishing. You have to skillfully fish either dry dropper or kind of a short, subtle, quiet nymph rig. These aren't very forgiving fish.
I moved here 15 years ago from Philadelphia so that I could trout fish. I couldn't stand not being around trout, but the irony is now I drive an hour down to Denver so I can go carp fishing. A lot of people have been fishing carp. Dave Whitlock fished carp on the Great Lakes many years ago, and Lefty Cray was a carp fisherman a long time ago. A lot of people find carp trendy now. It's kind of the cool thing to do because it's brown line fishing, it's an urban fishery, and that's great because access is an important thing, and people can find these fish wherever they are.
Urban waterways around cities like Denver are also attracting young anglers that have the desire to fish, but sometimes not the access.
This urban fishery, such as carp, it's fun because I'm still a fisherman. I like to go fly fishing. And there's plenty of opportunities in urban areas, and you don't have to go run up to the mountains and go fight the crowds. You can drive 10 minutes from my house and I'm at the reservoir and I'm fishing for carp, and it reminds me like I'm in the Bahamas walking the mangroves. And it is a unique fishery. You know, I'm overlooking downtown Denver and a huge reservoir and there's motorboats going. Yet there's this incredible fishery standing 2 feet in front of me. You gotta get caught up in your ways with trout fishing and freestone rivers and try and go hit all these wonderful rivers that are in every magazine. You don't see urban carp that much. There's quite a scene for it, and it's starting to pop up on people's radar.
Unfortunately, urban waterways don't always provide the peace and sense of escape many anglers are looking for. So we went looking for wide open spaces and die-hard carp anglers in the Pacific Northwest.
I started fishing for carp about 10 years ago. My wife was pregnant with my daughter, and I was trying to figure out something that I could do that would be a little closer to home and still kind of scratch that itch that all of us guys that love this have. I mean, I grew up in Montana trout fishing. I've caught my share of steelhead, although I'm not an expert by any means, but I really like the whole carp experience. We just go out on the Columbia, we're carrying a rod, and we walk 2 to 4 miles in the river, and we just try to stay knee deep. You know, I'm out there, nobody's bothered me, and in 10 years of doing this, I've seen people maybe 3 times. And I just walk around until I see a fish, and then I try to catch that fish. I've caught carp in 9 states now. In my experience, the carp on the Columbia are really difficult to catch comparatively. I think their main forage is freshwater clams. Because they eat clams, that affects the fly that you fish. You have to fish a really small fly that typically will imitate like the extended foot of a clam. When we see them tailing, we'll throw it right at them. So we don't even move it at all. We just let it sit there. And then we watch the fish and we see the fish head turn, tail speed up. A lot of times you just see a flash of color as it changes position in the water. My favorite is when you see the gills flare, and you'll literally see the gills, if you can see their head, you'll see them puff out sideways as they take in a big breath of the sand on the bottom and the food. And then we set the hook on that.
So that's a 23.
Embarrassingly enough, my very first carp that I caught, I refused to touch it. I thought it was really gross, but I've had that same stigma that a lot of guys do, that they're gross and they're a trash fish. And what I've come to realize is they are gross when you fish for them in gross water. So don't do it. You know, they live in a lot better water if you just hunt around. So now I fish for them in the Columbia in places where the water's nice and clear and the fish are beautiful.
About 25.
When I started doing it, I essentially lost all of my fishing friends. It took a while to kind of convert those guys over and convince them that they were a worthy target and fun and interesting to catch. But it's fun now because there's enough core guys that, you know, I can shoot out a text pretty quickly and find a guy who will join me now to fish with me and not pretend he's fishing for bass like they used to.
One of the draws of carp fishing is they get huge. The Pacific Northwest fish usually top out in the mid-20s, but for carp pushing 30 pounds, we headed to a state usually known for its trout fishing.
You know, you trout fish almost all your days off, all the time, year after year. How nice is it to just break it up in mid-season and go catch some, 10 to 15 pound fish. Probably been actually seeking carp for about maybe 18 years. One trip with my wife, we were here and we stumbled into the first mirror carp that I'd ever seen caught on fly. She caught it and the fish was about 16 pounds. It was just an unbelievable fish. And just looking at the size of that fish and then comparing that fish to the trout we were catching for years, getting really excited about it, I said, you know what, we're going to start coming back to this lake and fishing the carp. And that summer we got really into it. It's just gone crazy since then. Well, they're fun because, to me, number one, the challenge of catching them. You know, maybe I'm going to get my butt kicked and it's going to make me a better fisherman. All about the fight for me. The hooking part's the most exciting, but it is fun to have a fish run you into your backing in fresh water once in a while, especially a few times through the summer to break up that trout season, to have a fish that actually smokes you. Common carp, maricarp, actually the same species. The maricarp is a mutation. Kind of cool here in Idaho. We have a lot of these places where we have almost all maricarp.
It's just nice to switch things up, and I think people aren't curious enough about what else is out there. I really enjoy the sight fishing aspect of it. You know, poling in the Rocky Mountains, you don't see a lot of people doing it. In fact, a lot of people look at you like you're an alien because you show up to places that are in the middle of nowhere and they've never seen a poling platform before. And you just tell them it's for wakeboarding or something, and they leave you alone.
I like them because they're big, fun fish, and the size. Find carp running almost 7 to 8 pounds average anywhere that you find carp. And then there's the special places we catch, carp up to 25 pounds. And they're also found all over the world. I mean, almost every state has them. Everywhere you go, you can carp fish. I think that's just a great species.
The access to them is everywhere. And as this fish gains more and more popularity, which is happening, if you live in LA or if you live in, Denver, inner city, you're minutes away from, from this type of fishing. And, in the Rocky Mountains, you can probably go fool some trout pretty much everywhere you go, but that's not the case with carp. It's not easy. And you hear people say, oh, it's a trash fish. Well, go catch one on the fly and then talk about that. They fight hard, they're extremely challenging, they test anyone's ability. I mean, all around, it's a pretty amazing game fish, but if they would just jump, they rarely jump, but if they would jump pretty consistently, it would be pretty amazing.
For our final location, we tried to fulfill Mike's dream of catching carp that consistently jump. So we rounded up the old fishing crew, and like many great explorers in history, set out to explore a place people already call home. Little did we know we'd get our asses handed to us in the heartland.
I had a bunch of carp coming through, but we can't tell what they are. And they might be Asian carp, so they're just filtering food and it's impossible. Put flies right in front of their face, nymphs, dries, bitters, buggers. Not doing too well.
We're about to go hopefully catch a carp. Not exactly what I was anticipating.
We just found our first big school of tailing carp, and ATV appeared underneath the bridge and started doing donuts on the point where they were. We're about to fish not yet, right there. Not good for the carp. They're probably gone.
Get him, Bear. A little field mouse. He's cute. I wanted to stay in the boat with me, but...
Bear? Oh man, you're as delicate as a flower.
Just waded out into the muck, and I don't know what happened.
You want to talk about confused? So I grabbed this rod Dawes had. Got a bonefish fly and a San Juan worm. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing with this thing.
Unable to figure out how to catch the super invasive Asian jumping carp that are taking over watersheds along the Mississippi, Illinois, and other waterways in the Midwest, tried to salvage our expedition by getting the guys into Asian carp the way the locals do. It's not exactly purist, but tough times call for tough measures.
We're looking for padding. See here we've got much more padding for the big fish. We're going to put Bear on a very, very small tube, and the tube will barely hold him, and we're going to start doing some figure eights, and we're going to try to put the big bear in the air.
I'm out.